Now joining for Senate District 4, and by random selection we have Steve Butz going first and Gina Mitten going second. So without any further ado, we're going to have these two start and giving you a 2-minute overview statement.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here. Thanks for everybody. Great gathering, great place, one of the true Renaissance parts in South St. Louis along this area. So my name is Steve Butz, and I have been and had the honor to be the state rep for the 81st District for the last 8 years, 4 terms. And I'd like to take that experience and move it on up to the Senate, where you can be even much more effective than we can be as state reps. Lifelong city resident, and I mean lifelong city resident. I have always tried, when I first ran 8 years ago, my number one goal really was to be a good voice for the city, and in particular, my portion of the city, starting with Dutchtown, going all the way down through the Patch area. Since I've been in the House, you serve on numerous committees. I've had leadership roles, of course. I'll say that education and workforce development has been at the forefront, really, in a lot of areas. I think it's one of the most crucial areas we have. Public safety is simply always in everybody's mind. I do think we need more and better paid cops, better trained police force, in particular, some semblance of common sense gun regulation. I see that as just a huge way to address violence in this city. Lastly, we've got infrastructure needs everywhere. I just came from a ribbon cutting this morning at Bevo, at that apartment complex. Things like that, in cooperation with state tax credits, are doing good and transformative work in the city. So again, Steve Butz, and it is a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. All right, do I need to just talk? I just want to make sure we're on the right, syncing our time. So good evening, everybody. Again, first of all, I want to thank all of you that are in this building or room, because this is a long night, and I'm sure you've been here for a while and you're still staying. So thank you for taking time out of your busy day to pay attention to our political process. And thank you to the organizers. I am a committee woman, and I have put together events like this. It actually ran from state rep all to statewide, and it is a lot of work. So thank you guys for having this. It really is a wonderful thing for you guys to be doing. So I'm Gina Mitten, and I am running for Senate 4 as well. I'm a former state representative that served from 2013 till 2020. Probably the most newsworthy thing that the folks in this room would remember me for is I was the ranking Democrat on the committee that investigated former Governor Eric Greitens. It was me, a guy named Jay Barnes, who's a Republican, and the attorneys from our respective caucuses that basically got that done. And I'm proud of that work. My House district ran from Rock Hill to The Hill. So it was a city-county district just like this Senate district is. My city parts included Franz Park, Clifton Heights, Ellendale, northern Lindenwood, and western parts of Southwest Garden. I'm going to tell you quickly a little bit about myself. I am a high school dropout from U City High. I barely finished 9th grade. I moved to Los Angeles. I never went back to school, was on a work furlough program, took my GED about 2 weeks after I turned 16, and immediately worked full-time and went to community college for a long time. I ultimately returned to St. Louis because I wanted to have kids and I wanted to own a home, and finished my associates with St. Louis Community College, got a bachelor's at UMSL, and got a scholarship, went to Washington University School of Law. So yeah, I'm a lawyer from a 9th grade dropout. I have lived paycheck to paycheck. I know what that's like. Full disclosure, I am a county resident. Please don't hold that against me. I have represented the city. You can ask your friends in the areas that I mentioned if they think I did them wrong. And I live about 3 blocks into the county in the Richmond Heights area. And I am looking forward to serving the city just as I would serve the county. This district is a dual district, just like my House district was. And thanks again.
Thank you. So these, as I mentioned earlier, are questions submitted from the audience that have been sorted by others and handed to us. The first question is directly for Representative Butz, but I'm also going to rephrase it as well for former Representative Mitten. So for Representative Butz, the question will be, why did you support the state takeover bill that's of the police department? Do you regret that vote now? And then for former Representative Mitten, I will ask, do you support the state takeover of the St. Louis Police Department?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Do I regret the vote? I do not. Do I regret what's going on right now? I greatly do. And if we had to have one person that I think is the fly in the ointment, it is the attorney they've hired, Chris Graville. And I and a bunch of people are trying to do everything we can to get him to get rid of that guy. But that being said, I spoke on this several times on the floor. The number one priority of the Ethical Society of Police was to go back to a police board of commissioners, was the number one. The number one priority of the POA was to go back. I listened to the police. The best thing we could have done for them then, and I still believe now, though it's very hard, for the well-being, for the morale in the department, it was truly essential. Everybody on this board, as I hope you know, is a city resident. One reason, the biggest reason probably I think the Senate race is so important, is the city's senators, or the two state senators from 4 and 5, have carte blanche, veto authority over who the governor appoints to this board. They do not get approved without the approval of currently Senator May and Senator Roberts. That's why I think it is incredible that myself, I think, and I really think Representative Mitten too, will be a better judge of character of who serves on that board. But I'm gonna stand by it. In a year from now or so, we'll see if this does any better. And it is a tough negotiation for their pay. I understand that 100%. It's a union negotiation between the city and the police. Thank you.
I was violently arrested by that police department, and so to hear that answer from you is not only disheartening, but disqualifying as an elected official for the city of St. Louis. And I'm the
We're gonna have to, I'm sorry, committee woman, we're gonna have to move forward. We all have a lot of emotions, and we just want to make sure we're efficient on time, so we're going to put that same question to you, Mitten. If we can have everyone just please be a little bit quiet. We have a lot more questions, and it'll get spicier, I promise. So please pay attention. Don't use your inside voice. Don't talk at all. And Miss Mitten, if you could please.
Okay, thank you very much. So no, I would never, just no way, Jose. First and foremost, anybody says that they care about respecting the will of the voters would never have voted yes on that bill. The voters already weighed in 2012, right? 2, everybody that pays attention to the city knows what a cluster it was about liability and who's paying for what after it came to us. So hell no on that front, honestly. Because what that did was it took a bunch of money out of the city's coffers to pay for lawyers like me, instead of money that should be going to build infrastructure and help the city and to do the things that we need to do to make the police and the rest of our community work together. So no, I would never have voted for that. There's only 2 people that represent the city of St. Louis that voted in favor of that, and I don't, for the life of me, do not understand why we need city Democrats helping the Republicans to pass these laws.
You still have some more time if you would like to. No? Okay. Okay. You have bodily autonomy, and this next question is about bodily autonomy. A lot of Missourians, especially St. Louisans, are fleeing the state because of abortion access and access to transgender health care. If you were elected into this office, would you support abortion bans, or would you ensure that all Missourians have access to abortion? And additionally, when we're looking at trans health care, would you support bills that allow trans people to exist freely in all spaces, including bathrooms and all parts of public life? Thank you very much.
The latter is strongly yes, and I have done so and spoken so. I believe in that 100%. Am I pro-life? I like to consider myself in the best and fullest definition of that word, pro-life, not just pro-birth. When we have a situation where there are exceptions, I get it, and I'm constantly talking on the floor, we'll release these videos, when we did not include exceptions for rape and incest, health considerations for the mother. When those things weren't on there, I have to vote and have voted no on those bills. So some people would criticize me and say, and I accept the criticism, you voted no, but for the wrong reasons. I can just say, I voted no. Most recently, we had Amendment 3. I strongly supported Amendment 3. Once it was settled, it is an insult to bring it back so quickly. It's beyond ridiculous. And the wording, even worse, is disingenuous, what's going to be on the ballot. If they want to win in this area one way or the other, be honest with people that what they're voting on. I just can't express that strong enough. So I'm not with, I'm sure, a bunch of you everywhere on this issue, but I am with some of you in many parts on the issue. I try to be as consistent as I can. That is all parts of life. It is not just pro-birth. It is health care. It is gun safety. When my own sister was murdered in Seattle, it is opposing the death penalty. These are the kinds of things I stand for, and I will lay those cards out and be as transparent as I can. Thank you.
So abortion rights is probably the #1 reason why I got into this race. I have a daughter in her 20s, and I do not want her to be represented by somebody that does not wholly and unequivocally respect her right to control her bodily destiny, regardless of whether she's raped, for whatever reason. And I say that as someone that moved back to St. Louis because she wanted to have kids and had a child out of wedlock. Okay? It's not my beeswax, it's nobody's beeswax to control any woman's right to choose an abortion or not under any circumstances, period, full stop. That's what I'm about. I have an aunt, my family's from Nebraska. I have an aunt that in the 60s had to travel from Lincoln, Nebraska to Chicago to have a back alley abortion, okay? And thank God my grandparents supported her and paid for that to happen. Going back to that is just not in my playbook, never has been, never will be. But that is really the biggest reason why I am in this race. 80% of this district voted in favor of Amendment 3. They voted in favor to fully restore abortion rights for any reason and all reasons. 80%. That includes 76% of my opponent's district. That includes over 76% in all the wards, but 2 were over 80% in the city. This is a big deal to me. And I am willing, and I will always be willing to stand on the floor till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning to fight for this right. I feel that strongly about it.
Thank you. So our next question, I'm going to summarize to make it available for both of you. So this is a question about the bill called HB 2061, which defines anti-Semitism and uses the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. It recently passed. So Representative Butz and then Representative Mitten, could you please talk about your positions on, could you please talk about your positions on the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism and why you supported that, or how you would have voted on that?
So I did vote for this bill. I am committed to as much grace for everybody that is humanly possible. When we had attacks back in 9/11 and the Muslim community was under attack, or currently the transgender community, etc., I stand along with many of you with these people when they need our help. This anti-Semitism wave that is coming across America currently, this bill dealt with anti-Semitism. Absolutely. This bill allowed protections for students in school to get where they need to be and not be victims of anti-Semitic hate or people blocking their ways into buildings. It came back from the Senate. All 10 Democratic senators voted for this bill. There was, I'm going to say, about 25 no votes out of approximately 200 on this bill. Representative Hruza, if you heard his comments, I encourage you to. He has a great story to tell about being survivors in the Holocaust. And this time, right now, for these Jewish students, and when we went to the committee hearings, testimony after testimony by the actual students that testified were Jewish students from St. Louis being victims of anti-Semitism.
Thank you. Look, discrimination is discrimination, okay? I don't understand why anybody is interested in elevating one form of discrimination to the exclusion or not in the same way to any and all forms of discrimination. That's one. Two, the bill that left the House was terrible, okay? The Senate may have purdied it up a bit. It's still a bad bill. I see it as a recipe for more lawsuits. You know, go lawyers. Because it purportedly says that it doesn't include violation of First Amendment rights. But who's going to decide that? Let's be real. Who is really going to decide that? And let's talk about that definition as well. That definition has been adopted by several countries, but it's also been disavowed, for lack of a better term, by other countries and by human rights groups, the ACLU. If you like the ACLU, you don't like this bill. I can tell you that right now. The other thing is that the bill that left the House was punitive. It basically didn't distinguish between 3rd graders and 12th graders, and the whole point of it was punishment. Those are teaching moments. Let's be real. When somebody says something that hurts another person or is discriminatory, when it's a kid, they should be taught why it's harmful, why it's hurtful, not have to put their name and be reported to some Title VI coordinator for saying some bonehead things. I'm sure we've all said some bonehead things when we were still in school, and I'll probably say some bonehead things still. But those are the big reasons. One of the authors, actually one of the main authors of that definition, has said that it is problematic, and he no longer supports it, particularly all of the examples, which, by the way, I tried to find today, and their website, my antivirus won't allow me to see the website even. That's problematic. And it basically says, for instance, I can talk about, as an American, I can say, I love my country and I'm a patriot, but I hate everything that Donald Trump is doing, and I hate the fact that we're at war in Iran. But if I were to say that about a different country, I could be in trouble. That's crazy.
So this question kind of references Martin Luther King, and letters in the Birmingham jail. He mentions how the white moderate is the greatest stumbling block to the liberation of black people. Both of you are, how would you recognize your potential to be an obstacle in the liberation of black people in the city of St. Louis, judging on your former records and future records?
I guess I'll go with that first. Do I consider myself a white moderate? I do not. On some things I'm moderate, on some things I'm very liberal, on some things I'm conservative. I consider myself first and foremost a human being, a Christian with dignity before God, to honor all peoples. Do I respect and understand the plight of black people in America? I try to. I do not fully. I never would say so. In my own family, when I grew up, the first black person I had any contact with was a first grade teacher, Mrs. Lawson, at St. George School in Afton. First black person as a little child I ever saw. Wonderful teacher. Still love those memories to this day. Since that time, my world has grown. Some of my best friends right here, pick on Marlon Anderson and Marty from North St. Louis, Dell, others. When your world grows and you meet other people, your life experience changes. Do you need love and respect for every last person to lift down the downtrodden? Absolutely do. If you're in a position to do something about that, it is your responsibility to do so. In my own family, we have multiple African-American nieces, nephews, grandkids, etc. Are we a melting pot? I think we are, and it's one of the strengths that we have in this city. It's one of the strengths we have in this country. I want to do my part to heal racial wounds that have existed. I think all of us play a role in that, and I'm going to continue to do the best of that I can to love and respect each person from their lived experience. I listen with both ears first, try to learn from that, and then move on and work and help someone the best I can.
I can't remember exactly how that question was worded, but I think that it was something about how do I understand our differences, right? Or my bias and privilege?
Your bias and privilege
Thank
and
you.
the potential for your complacency to get in the way of Black liberation.
Love that question. So all I can start is, yes, I have bias and privilege, obviously. I'm a white girl from U City at a time when white people were in the minority, not as it is today. So I grew up in a very multicultural environment. My parents protested in Omaha, Nebraska in the 60s. So I was sort of raised on civil rights. And I think that how are we complacent? We're complacent by not getting out of the way and listening to what we need to listen to. The people that have their actual boots on the ground are living that experience. I liken it to being a woman. I don't want a man mansplaining to me any more than I think people of color want me to white-splain to them. And that's where I come from on those issues. I would hope, and I'm sure somebody's going to be looking it up, but I would hope that my voting record reflects that continuously. But we have got to I think we just have to get out of the way of persons that are not us and let them do the things that they need to do and support what they need to do rather than get in the way.
Thank you. Thank you. As we've also seen with the rolling back of the Voting Rights Act and understanding that this has historically been a Black represented Senate district, it is important to be thinking about these things as we only have 2 white candidates in the race. So thank you for your answers there. Our last question before our closing statements is going to be about the regulation of large-scale data centers and public utilities. Could you talk about your positions on those issues for us, please?
Okay, so I'm going to go 2-3 years ago. I barely heard of a data center, and it has been nonstop in the news, as we all know. Is it inevitable that we need these data centers? From what I have, the little bit of study that I've been trying to do this whole past year, the answer to that is yes. Where they are, how they are regulated, what kind of closed water loop system they use, all critically important. I can tell you right now, for the city, the issue has been, should it be right down by that armory? That seems like a crazy location to me. Large, abandoned industrial areas inside the city limits seems to me the place to properly put data centers. I know we have a dozen or so already. We're going to need more. This is inevitable. They're going to come in. They are coming in. They're being built all over. Do we need the tax revenue and the jobs? I do think we do need those. It is critically important, though, where they're located, and you have to listen to people where they want it located, and when they absolutely speak and do not want it in their neighborhood and in their backyard, 100%. Local government has to listen to that. That is why, those of us that have lived in the city for a long time, there's just large swaths of abandoned industrial sites that seem to me would be a great home for data centers. The jobs are important. The tax revenue is important to this city. We've got to rebuild our tax base. And so that kind of study, and I do think, I wish the mayor and that team the best in finding out every last detail and getting the best possible deal they can get for the city.
First and foremost, I believe in local control. And if you believe in local control, you believe in it on all issues. And I have a very few exceptions, and data centers is not one of them. I understand what's going on in the city right now has got to be frustrating to a lot of people, but that's honestly why we elect folks. I could never support data centers that do not have the closed water loop system. I think that that's just a real problem. I gotta say that I cringe a little bit when we talk about let's put them in abandoned industrialized centers, because the first thing that comes to my mind is the long, long, long history of disinvestment in African American communities, and how it's like okay to put it in the backyard of somebody that's not my color and maybe not of my socioeconomic status. I got a problem with that. I believe in doing environmental studies. I actually spent 2 semesters in WashU Environmental Law Clinic when I was in law school, and that's important to me. I believe in the environmental studies aspect of it, and I also really strongly believe in the transparency. I can't believe this is coming out of my mouth, but I'm glad that Microsoft, who'd have thought I'd ever be applauding Microsoft, but they've come out and said, we're not going to do this secret anymore. We're going to tell people that it's Microsoft that wants to build this. I think that's a really important first step. I also believe in full transparency about the impact to our bills as ratepayers. And we need to be able to know exactly what deal data centers are cutting and how it's going to impact my electric bill and the electric bill of everybody in this community. That's just super important to me. But am I fundamentally absolutely opposed to them in all circumstances? No, I am not. I'm just going to be real about that. But I do think that we need to have guardrails, and I think that we need to support our local elected officials. I think every community knows what's best for its community and should be able to use representative democracy in order to ensure that the outcome that the community as a whole wants.
All right, and that seems to be all the questions that we have for our list. So if you both can close with a 1-minute statement.
Thanks very much. Once again, thanks to all the organizers, everybody that came and gave their time tonight. To my opponent and former colleague, Representative Mitten, I really appreciate the back and forth. Steve Butz from the city of St. Louis, if there is one point I would like to leave you with, if you would like to have a state senator who is going to work harder than anyone we've had before, tries to build bridges between all peoples, all stakeholders, the county, the city, rural, urban. These are all the type challenges that we have to do that this job entails. That ability to work with people, find some sense of common ground, and above and beyond, do it with empathy, grace, and kindness. I'd appreciate your vote on August 4th. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
So in closing, again, I want to thank everybody as this is a big thing. Look, I'm the only candidate up here that has a consistent voting record on abortion rights. I'm the only candidate up here that has never taken a red penny from Rex Sinquefield. You know, the guy who's made it his mission in life to do away with the income tax. The guy who caused the city to have to spend a couple $100,000 plus on an election when there was one thing on the ballot, and the guy that's very interested in sending our taxpayer dollars to private schools that force the families to do things like disavow homosexuality in order for them to attend. That ain't right in my book. It's just not. I'm the only candidate that has never, ever voted to reduce unemployment benefits for our working folks here in Missouri, and I stand by my voting record. As far as effectiveness goes, there's a reason why the Republican Speaker of the House put me on the Greitens Committee, okay? You don't get to do that unless you play nice in the sandbox with people on both sides of the aisle, and I'm able to do that, and I've shown that. And let's talk, I'm also the only candidate that's never taken any money from any member of the Board of Police Commissioners.
Thank you so much. All right, it has been a spicy evening, but the main course is still coming up. If you have to go to the bathroom, we have a 5-minute break, but please make some noise for these 2 people running for Senate.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.